To say that The Last Jedi was a widely loved movie by fans when it was first released in theaters would be far from the truth. Many fans were vocal about the many story beats that they didn't enjoy, like Rose and Finn kissing, Snoke being killed, and the major one, Luke being a hermit on Ahch-To, unwilling to help fight against the First Order. Personally, Luke's portrayal in The Last Jedi is my favorite throughout the entire Skywalker Saga. I've always loved him as a character, but his role in The Last Jedi resonated with me on a level no other movie has. He begins as someone trying to hide away from his past failures, but when someone arrives and forces him to take action, he reconnects with the Force and goes back into the galaxy to be a Jedi again. Now that statement sounds familiar, almost like it was the plot of a recent Disney Plus series. I noticed while watching Obi-Wan Kenobi just how similar his journey throughout the series is to Luke during The Last Jedi, but the key difference is that audience's reaction to it. Luke became a major source of criticism for the movie, but Obi-Wan's journey was praised throughout his series. Before I go deeper into the similarities, I want to think about why these reactions may have been different. I think the major reason had to do with the expectations going in, something that really hurt The Last Jedi. Fans were left on the climactic shot of Rey handing Luke the lightsaber, and we theorized about it for years before The Last Jedi released. We were expecting Luke to take the lightsaber and follow Rey back to the known galaxy to take on the First Order. What we were definitely not expecting was Luke to toss his father's lightsaber over the cliff and refuse to help Rey or the Resistance. Every moment after that seemed to break expectations, and some fans were just too emotionally attached to Luke and their theories that they didn't enjoy what they got with Luke, which is completely okay. Hopefully those fans have come around to the movie since then, but I have been in that camp, where expectations get in the way and I ended up not enjoying the story that I got. The big difference when it comes to Obi-Wan Kenobi was that the expectations, for the most part, were that we knew the version of Obi-Wan that we were going to see at the start of the series. We knew that he had survived Order 66 and then failed to save Anakin from the dark side. As a survivor, he needed to hide from the Empire, and he needed to watch over Luke on Tatooine. So it wasn't any surprise when we see him living in a cave on Tatooine, blending in with the crowd. But what surprised me was how quickly he turned down Nari, a hunted Jedi in need of help, but that didn't seem to receive any criticism, but was rather praised as a part of his character arc. I'm not saying that the Obi-Wan Kenobi series should have received criticism, but rather why The Last Jedi, and Luke Skywalker's character in particular, should be re-evaluated after all these years. So let's see how similar these versions of the two popular characters are. When both Obi-Wan Kenobi and The Last Jedi begin, we're introduced to a Jedi Master who has gone into hermitage, emotionally distraught after their failures to save their Padawan from the dark side. Anakin for Obi-Wan, and Ben Solo for Luke. They are hiding from the galaxy on a less developed world, even though they were a sign of good during the previous era and could be helping against the current regime. Even though they don't have a lightsaber anymore, they both have access to one. Obi-Wan could get his and Anakin's from where he buried them in the desert, and Luke could get Leia's lightsaber from one of the huts on Ahch-To. They cut themselves off from the Force to punish themselves, causing them to lose their way and not be aware of what's happening in the galaxy at that moment. Obi-Wan had no idea Vader survived their duel, and Luke was unaware of Han's death on Starkiller and the destruction of Hosnian Prime. Both characters were approached by someone they knew, who requested that they come out of hiding to help Leia. Bail Organa contacts Obi-Wan via hologram that Leia has been kidnapped, and wishing to keep the situation under wraps, he asks Obi-Wan to leave Tatooine to help him. Rey arrives on Luke's doorstep with his family lightsaber, asking him to come back and help Leia and the Resistance against the First Order, to leave his hiding in Ahch-To, and to become a true Jedi again. However, after the initial request, our heroes turn down the plea for help, and choose to remain where they are, stuck in their trauma and hopelessness. But thankfully, due to the persistence of the Seeker, the heroes convince to help. Bail Organa risks everything to meet Obi-Wan in person and convince him that Leia is just as important as Luke, and then he needs to stop holding on to his past failures and go be a Jedi again. Rey, after initially being turned down by Luke, continues to follow him around the island, refusing to return to the Resistance without him. Thanks to her perseverance and her Force sensitivity, Luke agrees to train her. It's not the help that she was sent to Ahch-To to get, but it's the help that she was hoping to get from Luke. Both characters have some bumps in the road. Obi-Wan has to deal with Leia's rebellious nature and the various Inquisitors after them, as well as rescue Leia again from Fortress Inquisitorius on Nur. Even after agreeing to train Rey, Luke sees her touch the darkness multiple times, reaching out to the concentrated darkness on the island, then visiting the mirror cave that has a profound connection to the dark side, and then reaching out to Kylo in the hut. He then has a fight with Rey in which he explains what really happened the night Ben Solo destroyed the temple. The path of coming out of exile was not easy for either Jedi, but after everything, the hero reconnects with the Force to face their past and sacrifices himself to allow Leia to be safe. Obi-Wan, after everything he had gone through in the series, finally has the mindset of what it is to be a Jedi again. He's reconnected with the Force and has chosen to help these strangers because it's the right thing to do. Even though the reasoning is partially personal, he chooses to help them escape by confronting Vader on the planet below, the man who represents all of Obi-Wan's failures. The man that Obi-Wan failed in teaching, and then failed to kill on Mustafar, allowing him to grow into this machination of a monster that has terrorized the galaxy for a decade. Obi-Wan and Vader duel, during which Obi-Wan remembers what he's fighting for, Luke and Leia, and the future of the galaxy. The duel continues, but in the end, Obi-Wan walks away from his former pupil. He realizes that he cannot be the one to save Anakin, and leaves his former apprentice on the planet alone, refusing to kill him. Whether or not he had it in mind at the moment, by keeping Vader alive, Obi-Wan kept the opportunity for Anakin's redemption open for the future, which allowed Luke to face his father and eventually turn him back to the light. In the end, Obi-Wan has been able to move on from his failures, and because of this, Leia and the rest of the path were able to escape their pursuers. Luke's fight with Kylo Ren on Crait could be described in a very similar way. After being confronted by Yoda, Luke is reminded of what it means to be a true Jedi. He's seen slowly reconnecting with the Force throughout the movie, but casting a Force projection across the galaxy is the culmination of his journey. He arrives on Crait for two reasons: a personal one, to confront his failed pupil in Kylo Ren, and a morally good one, to give Leia and the Resistance time to escape the First Order. Just like Vader for Obi-Wan, Kylo represents all of Luke's failures. His inability to save his nephew from the darkness, his moment of weakness where he ignited his lightsaber to strike him down, and all of the other Jedi that were killed because of his mistakes. Even though Luke never strikes Kylo, their interaction would definitely be considered a duel, during which Luke reminds everyone what the fight is about: the future of the rebellion and the Jedi. The duel ends with Luke simply disappearing. When he first arrived, Luke said to Leia that he couldn't save him, not that Ben couldn't be saved. Luke knows that he was the tipping point in Ben's turn to the dark side, so nothing he says will mean anything to Kylo at this point. But he never rules out the fact that he could still be saved. Similar to Obi-Wan leaving a damaged Vader alone on the planet's surface, Luke chooses to project himself to Crait, just enough to give the Resistance time to escape, knowing that he can't convince his former student to turn away from the darkness, and unwilling to kill his nephew. But Luke still leaves the opportunity open for someone to come later and turn him back to the light side, like how Rey eventually does after their duel in The Rise of Skywalker. Luke, still with Kylo, gives Leia and the Resistance time to escape to the Falcon. Both Jedi were convinced to leave their exile to confront their past and save Leia. Like I said before, I'm not saying that one or both of these stories should be liked or disliked more than they are. I don't want to be the guy convincing everyone to have the same opinions as me. But hopefully, for anyone that watched this entire video, you might have come around on a story or character arc that you previously disliked. If I can get a fan to realize something new about Star Wars, and maybe find a way to enjoy it more, then that's a win for me. These two character arcs were just so similar that I found myself having to talk about it, and hopefully it was helpful for all of you too. Let me know your thoughts about these two characters' journeys and their respective stories, and if this helped change your view of them in any sort of way. Remember to like the video, and subscribe for more breakdowns like this, as well as reviews, news reports, lore deep dives, and more. As always, thank you all for watching, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.